Vexnara's third eye twitched with barely contained amusement as she watched the pathetic excuse for a diplomatic vessel dock at Station Prime. The thing looked like it had been assembled by blind younglings using scrap metal and pure optimism. Compared to the magnificent Zolothian dreadnoughts gleaming in the harbor, or the elegant Feronian crystal ships that seemed to bend light itself, this human contraption was, well, it was embarrassing. "Look at that piece of junk," wheezed Counselor Threx from his hovering biopod, his amphibious skin rippling with what passed for laughter among his species. Did they seriously travel 16 light-years in that rust bucket? Vexnara's mandibles clicked in agreement. As senior trade arbitrator for the Zylothian Empire, she had seen countless species make their debut at the galactic confluence. Most arrived with at least a pretense of dignity. The humans. They showed up looking like they had raided a junkyard and called it good. The docking bay's atmospheric processors hissed as they adjusted to accommodate the newcomers. Through the massive transparisteel viewing port, Vexnara could see the human delegation emerging from their shabby vessel. 3 figures in simple, dark uniforms stepped onto the gleaming deck of the most prestigious diplomatic station in known space. "By the 7 suns," muttered Ambassador Krill, her serpentine form coiling with disdain. "They dress like maintenance workers. Where are their ceremonial robes? Their honor guards? Their anything?" The lead human was unremarkable by any civilized standard. Medium height, brown hair cropped short, wearing what appeared to be a basic military uniform with minimal decoration. No exotic features, no impressive cybernetic enhancements, no biomodifications that spoke of advanced civilization. Just ordinary. "That must be their so-called ambassador," Vexnara observed, consulting her datapad. Kai Morrison. Age 37 standard years. Former military. No noble lineage, no advanced degrees from prestigious academies. How wonderfully adequate. The viewing gallery buzzed with whispered commentary as more council members gathered to witness this spectacle. The Korathian representative, a massive insectoid whose species had conquered half their home galaxy, clicked his approval. "At least we will have entertainment today. I was expecting another tedious trade negotiation." What struck Vexnara as particularly amusing was the human ambassador's demeanor. While any reasonable being would show at least some nervousness when entering the political heart of galactic civilization, Kai Morrison walked with steady, measured steps. No hurried pace, no gawking at the architectural marvels surrounding them, no obvious signs of being overwhelmed. "Look at him," she said to no one in particular, "walking around like he owns the place. The audacity is almost admirable." The human delegation passed beneath a sculpture commemorating the Andromedan Peace Accords, a masterwork of crystallized dark matter that had taken 3 centuries to complete. Kai Morrison glanced at it for perhaps 2 seconds before continuing forward. 2 seconds. For a piece that most species spent hours studying in reverent silence. "Ignorant primitives," hissed Counselor Zethra, her 6 arms gesturing dismissively. "They have no appreciation for true artistry. No understanding of the significance of this place." The galactic confluence chamber itself was a testament to the achievements of civilized species. Gravity wells allowed representatives from various worlds to exist in their preferred environments simultaneously. Bioneural networks translated thousands of languages in real time. The central podium floated above a holographic display showing the current borders of all member civilizations. It was magnificent. It was awe-inspiring. It was designed to humble newcomers and remind them of their place in the cosmic order. Kai Morrison entered the chamber, looked around once, and took his designated position with the same expression he might wear while ordering lunch. "Remarkable," Vexnara murmured. "Either he is completely oblivious to where he stands or—" She did not finish the thought. The alternative was too absurd to consider. The chamber filled with representatives from 47 different species, military commanders who had conquered star systems, diplomats who had negotiated treaties spanning millennia, trade moguls whose decisions affected the economic fate of entire civilizations. And there, in the center of it all, stood one unremarkable human with his hands clasped behind his back, waiting patiently for the proceedings to begin. "This should be amusing," Vexnara said to herself, settling into her observation alcove. "I wonder how long it will take before he realizes he is completely out of his depth." The session chime resonated through the chamber. Supreme Chancellor Vorik, ancient beyond measure and respected throughout the galaxy, materialized in his holographic throne. "The 743rd session of the Galactic Confluence will now commence," his voice echoed with the weight of millennia. "We recognize the delegation from Earth." A ripple of polite, patronizing applause circulated through the chamber. Vexnara joined in, already anticipating the entertainment to come. These humans had no idea what they had walked into. Kai Morrison stepped forward to the speaker's platform, and for just a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Not nervousness, not uncertainty, something else entirely. Something that made Vexnara's amusement falter for just an instant before dismissing it as imagination. Kai Morrison cleared his throat once. The simple sound somehow carried across the entire chamber, cutting through the ambient hum of translation matrices and gravity regulators. Vexnara found herself leaning forward despite her better judgment. "Honored members of the Galactic Confluence," Kai began, his voice steady and clear. "Earth formally requests recognition of our stellar defense coordination rights across all inhabited systems within a 50-light-year radius of our home world." The silence that followed was so complete that Vexnara could hear her own cardiovascular system pumping. Then, like a dam bursting, the chamber erupted. "Stellar defense coordination rights?" Chancellor Vorik's ancient voice cracked with disbelief. "Young species, do you understand what you have just requested?" Counselor Threx's biopod bobbed violently as he struggled to contain his laughter. "Coordination rights. Oh, this is rich. They want to coordinate our defenses." "Our defenses." Vexnara's mandibles clicked rapidly as she processed the sheer magnitude of the request. Stellar defense coordination rights meant authority over military movements, fleet deployments, and strategic resource allocation. It meant command authority over species that had been spacefaring when humans were still discovering fire. "Perhaps there has been a translation error," suggested Ambassador Krill, her serpentine form coiling with barely restrained mirth. "Surely they mean to request protection? Defense assistance? Not coordination rights?" Kai Morrison's expression never changed. "No translation error, Ambassador. Earth requests full coordination authority over defensive operations in our designated sphere." The Korathian representative's massive head tilted in what passed for incredulous amusement among his species. "Little mammal, my people have been waging interstellar warfare for 12,000 of your years. We have conquered 17 star systems and brought peace to 4 entire sectors. You want to coordinate our efforts?" "That is correct," Kai replied without hesitation. Vexnara felt her amusement growing into something approaching euphoria. But this was beyond anything she had witnessed in 3 centuries of diplomatic service. The audacity was so spectacular that it bordered on performance art. "Let me understand this properly," she called out, rising from her observation alcove. "Your species, which achieved spaceflight approximately 60 standard years ago, wishes to command the defensive operations of civilizations that predate your written history by millennia?" "Your grasp of the situation is accurate," Kai confirmed. The chamber buzzed with translation algorithms working overtime as dozens of species attempted to express concepts for which some languages had no words. Vexnara caught fragments: "impossible arrogance in Andromedan, cosmic joke in Feronian, mental deficiency," in at least 6 different tongues. Counselor Zethra's 6 arms waved in theatrical dismay. "Young human, perhaps you do not comprehend the scope of galactic defense. The Xylorian defense grid alone spans 47 star systems. The Andromedan fleet comprises over 10,000 vessels. The Xylothian Empire maintains strategic reserves that could sterilize entire planets. And you believe, wheezed Threx, that your tiny world with its primitive chemical rockets and basic fusion reactors should coordinate these forces?" Kai Morrison nodded once. Earth believes we are uniquely qualified for this responsibility. The laughter that followed was not polite diplomatic amusement. It was genuine, belly-deep laughter that echoed off the chamber's bio-neural walls. Vexnara found herself joining in, her usually controlled demeanor cracking under the sheer absurdity of the moment. Uniquely qualified, she repeated between fits of clicking. Based on what qualifications? Your impressive record of what? Launching a few research probes? Establishing a mining station on your moon? Earth's qualifications will become apparent, Kai said calmly. Supreme Chancellor Vorik, who had remained silent during the outburst, finally spoke. His voice carried the weight of eons spent mediating disputes between civilizations that could reduce worlds to cosmic dust. Young Ambassador, I have overseen first contact protocols for species across 7 galaxies. Never, in all my years, has a newly spacefaring civilization requested command authority over established galactic powers. The request is so unprecedented that our legal databases contain no framework for processing it. Perhaps, suggested the Andromedan representative, we should simply consider this a learning experience. New species often misunderstand the scope of galactic politics. Vexnara studied Kai Morrison's face carefully. Most beings, when faced with such universal rejection, would show signs of embarrassment, anger, or at least confusion. Instead, the human maintained the same patient expression he had worn since entering the chamber. Is there perhaps, she said, fighting to keep the laughter from her voice, a smaller request you might prefer to make? Trade partnership rights? Cultural exchange agreements? A simple mutual defense pact? No, Kai replied. Earth's proposal stands as presented. The Korathian representative's exoskeleton rattled with what passed for hilarity among his kind. The entertainment value alone makes this worth the time investment. Tell me, small mammal, what happens when we reject your absurd proposal? Will you declare war on the galaxy? Something flickered across Kai Morrison's features. For just a moment, Vexnara thought she detected what might have been amusement. War would be counterproductive, he said quietly. Earth prefers more elegant solutions to diplomatic challenges. Elegant solutions, Vexnara repeated, savoring the phrase. How wonderfully optimistic. I am almost curious to hear what your backup plan might be. Kai Morrison met her gaze directly. You will not have to wait long to find out. The chamber fell quiet again, but this time the silence carried a different quality. Something in the human's tone had shifted, though Vexnara could not identify exactly what had changed. Very well, Chancellor Vorik announced. The Galactic Confluence formally rejects Earth's request for stellar defense coordination rights. The proposal is deemed inappropriate for a species of your current technological and political development level. Kai Morrison nodded as if this was exactly the response he had expected. Thank you for your consideration. Earth appreciates the Confluence's position. He turned to leave, then paused at the chamber's exit. Oh, and counselors? You might want to check your long-range sensors in approximately 6 hours. With that, he was gone, leaving behind a chamber full of the galaxy's most powerful beings wondering what, exactly, they had just witnessed. The moment the chamber doors sealed behind Kai Morrison, the Galactic Confluence erupted into the most spectacular display of interspecies hilarity Vexnara had witnessed in her 3 centuries of service. The sound was magnificent, a symphony of clicks, roars, whistles, and harmonic vibrations that the translation matrix struggled to process. 6 hours. Wheezed Counselor Threx, his biopod shaking so violently that support staff rushed to stabilize it. Check our sensors in 6 hours. Oh, magnificent. What do they plan to do? Launch their entire space fleet of, 12 vessels? The Andromedan representative's crystalline form pulsed with rainbow colors indicating extreme amusement. Perhaps they will perform some sort of primitive light show? Fire off their chemical rockets in formation? How delightfully quaint. Vexnara found herself doubled over, her mandibles clicking so rapidly they generated a high-pitched whine. Did you see his face? The absolute confidence. as if he had just delivered the most reasonable proposal in galactic history. "The best part," declared Counselor Zethra, her 6 arms gesturing wildly, "was when he said Earth prefers elegant solutions." Elegant. From a species that still uses combustion engines for atmospheric flight. But Supreme Chancellor Vorik's ancient hologram flickered with what might have been amusement. In 47,000 years of diplomatic service, I have never encountered such optimism. The human actually believed we would grant them command authority over galactic defense forces. The Korathian representative's exoskeleton clattered as he attempted to contain his mirth. My military analysts are probably still trying to process the request for command authority over the Korathian battle fleet, the finest fighting force in 3 galaxies, taking orders from mammals who discovered fire yesterday. "Wait, wait," called out Ambassador Krill, her serpentine form coiling with glee. The truly magnificent part was his response when we asked about qualifications. Earth's qualifications will become apparent. As if we are too primitive to recognize their obvious superiority. Vexnara wiped moisture from her compound eyes, a biological response to extreme amusement that she rarely experienced. I keep replaying that moment in my head. The sheer audacity of standing before the combined might of galactic civilization and requesting to be put in charge of it all. And the delivery, added the Feronian delegate, her voice chiming like crystal bells. No nervousness, no second-guessing, no attempt to soften the request with diplomatic language. Just pure, undiluted presumption. The Chamber's bioneural networks recorded the conversation, as they did all official proceedings, but Vexnara suspected this particular session would become legendary among diplomatic circles. This was the kind of story that would be retold at embassy gatherings for centuries. I wonder what their reaction will be when they realize we rejected them, mused Counselor Zethra. Will they submit a revised proposal? Request a reconsideration hearing? Perhaps demand to speak with someone more senior? There is no one more senior than the Supreme Chancellor, Threx pointed out. Though I suppose they might not understand the hierarchy. Primitives often struggle with complex governmental structures. The Korathian representative stood to his full imposing height. My personal favorite moment was when young Vexnara asked about their backup plan, and the human claimed we would not have to wait long to find out. Ooh, the confidence. The absolute certainty. As if they had some sort of master strategy prepared. "Oh yes, the mysterious sensor warning," Vexnara said, her amusement reaching new peaks. 6 hours. Mark your chronometers, everyone. In 6 hours we are apparently going to witness something. Perhaps they will broadcast a strongly worded message across subspace. Let's threaten to file a formal complaint with the Intergalactic Ethics Committee? Maybe they will perform some sort of cultural demonstration, suggested the Andromedan representative. Primitive species often believe that displays of their artistic capabilities will impress more advanced civilizations. Chancellor Vorik's voice resonated through the chamber with the weight of millennia. Whatever their planned demonstration might be, it changes nothing. Earth's request has been formally rejected and entered into the permanent record. They are welcome to reapply when they have achieved a more appropriate level of technological and political development. "How long do you estimate that might take?" asked Ambassador Krill. "Another 1,000 years? 5,000? Optimistically. Vexnara calculated quickly. Assuming steady technological progress and no major setbacks from warfare or natural disasters, perhaps 10,000 years. Maybe 15, if they maintain their current rate of advancement. The laughter renewed itself with fresh vigor. 10,000 years. The time span was so vast that most species would go through multiple evolutionary phases before Earth could legitimately claim galactic leadership capabilities. "I almost feel sorry for them," admitted the Feronian delegate. "The disappointment must be crushing. To come so far, only to learn that they are still cosmic infants playing at being adults." "Do not feel too sympathetic," advised Threx. This was an important lesson for them. Better they learn their place now than continue harboring such impossible delusions. Vexnara nodded agreement. though something nagged at the back of her consciousness. Something about Kai Morrison's demeanor bothered her, though she could not identify exactly what. The human had shown no surprise at their rejection, no disappointment, no anger, just acceptance. And that strange comment about elegant solutions. Well, she announced, rising from her position, this has been the most entertaining session in recent memory. But I have trade negotiations to attend to, real business with civilized species. Indeed, agreed Chancellor Vorik. This session is formally concluded. Standard diplomatic protocols will be forwarded to the Earth delegation regarding future contact procedures. As the various representatives began filing out of the chamber, conversations continued in dozens of languages. The human proposal would be discussed in embassy halls, military briefings, and academic circles across the galaxy. It would become a cautionary tale about the dangers of premature ambition. Vexnara paused at the chamber exit, glancing back at the speaker's platform where Kai Morrison had stood just minutes earlier. Something about his final words echoed in her memory. 6 hours. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Whatever the humans had planned, it would be as insignificant as everything else about their primitive civilization. Vexnara was halfway through reviewing trade agreements when her personal communicator chimed with an urgent priority alert. She glanced at the timestamp, exactly 4 hours and 37 minutes since the human delegation had departed Station Prime. Senior Arbitrator Vexnara, came the voice of her aide, Krixtal. You are receiving an encrypted transmission from the human vessel. They are requesting immediate broadcast privileges to all Confluence members. Vexnara's mandibles stopped clicking mid-gesture. Broadcast privileges. For what purpose? They claimed to have a demonstration relevant to their earlier proposal. The absurdity was so complete that Vexnara actually laughed out loud. A demonstration. What could they possibly demonstrate that would change anything? Let me guess, they want to show us their primitive fusion reactors. Perhaps a display of their chemical propulsion systems. Unknown senior arbitrator. However, the request comes with full diplomatic credentials and priority encryption. Protocol requires we at least acknowledge receipt. Vexnara considered this. Technically, any recognized delegation had the right to request broadcast time, though it was rarely used except for formal treaty announcements or emergency declarations. Very well. Route it to my personal terminal. I could use another laugh today. The screen activated, revealing Kai Morrison's face once again. But something had changed. The calm, patient demeanor remained, but underneath it, Vexnara detected something new. A quiet satisfaction that made her skin crawl with inexplicable unease. Greetings, members of the Galactic Confluence, Kai began. As promised, Earth is prepared to provide a practical demonstration of our qualifications for stellar defense coordination rights. Vexnara found herself leaning forward despite her better judgment. Around the galaxy, she knew other council members were likely watching this same transmission with varying degrees of amusement and curiosity. Our demonstration will commence in exactly 93 minutes, Kai continued. During this time, you may observe certain irregularities in your long-range sensor networks. Please do not be alarmed. These irregularities are temporary and pose no immediate threat to galactic security. The transmission ended. Vexnara stared at the blank screen for a full 30 seconds before her communicator exploded with incoming messages. Every major council member was demanding explanations, clarifications, or expressing outright bewilderment at the human's latest bit of theatrical nonsense. Krixtal, she called out. Contact Station Prime's Sensor Operations Center. I want a full spectrum analysis of all current readings. Already initiated. Senior Arbitrator. Commander Velkorth reports all systems nominal. No unusual activity detected in any monitored sectors. Of course, there was nothing. What could the humans possibly do that would register on sensors designed to track phenomena across galactic distances? Their entire military could probably fit inside a single Xylothian cargo bay. Vexnara's secondary communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Counselor Threx. His biopod was apparently vibrating with renewed laughter. Are you monitoring this comedy? The humans actually believe they can demonstrate something impressive to the galactic confluence. I have military analysts standing by to record their little show for the entertainment archives, and similar messages flooded in from across the galaxy. The Korathian battle fleet had apparently gone to high alert as a precautionary measure, though their commander admitted it was primarily for training purposes. The Andromedan defense grid had assigned 3 junior technicians to monitor whatever spectacle the humans were planning. Nobody, Vexnara realized, was taking this seriously. Except. She pulled up the sensor data again, running more detailed scans. Everything appeared normal. Stellar radiation patterns matched historical baselines. Gravitational distortions followed predictable mathematical models. Subspace communications flowed through established channels without interference. But something felt wrong. Vexnara had spent 3 centuries analyzing data patterns, and her instincts had never failed her. There was something in the readings she could not identify. Not wrong exactly, but different. Subtle variations that fell within normal parameters, but clustered in ways that seemed almost deliberate. Crix-Tal, expand the sensor sweep to include secondary monitoring stations. I want data from at least 12 different installations. Processing request now, Senior Arbitrator. While she waited, Vexnara reviewed the tactical situation. Earth's known military assets consisted of perhaps 30 space-capable vessels, most designed for scientific research rather than combat operations. Their largest ship was smaller than a Xylothian frigate. Their weapons technology lagged behind galactic standards by approximately 3,000 years. What could they possibly demonstrate? The sensor data from secondary stations began filtering in, and Vexnara's unease deepened. The same subtle irregularities appeared across multiple installations. Tiny fluctuations in background radiation, microscopic gravitational anomalies, quantum field variations that registered just barely above measurement error thresholds. Individually, each reading was meaningless. Collectively, they formed a pattern. Senior Arbitrator, Crix-Tal's voice carried a note of confusion. I am receiving similar reports from monitoring stations across 7 different sectors, all reporting minor anomalies that fall within acceptable variance ranges, but they are all reporting them simultaneously, Vexnara finished, and in ways that suggest coordination rather than natural phenomena. Her personal communicator chimed again. This time, the caller identification made her mandibles freeze mid-click, Supreme Chancellor Vorik himself. Senior Arbitrator, the ancient voice resonated with authority. Are you monitoring the current sensor irregularities? Yes, Supreme Chancellor. The patterns are unusual. Indeed. I have ruled this galaxy for longer than most species have existed, and I have never witnessed such perfectly synchronized anomalies across such vast distances. Either we are experiencing the most improbable coincidence in recorded history, or... The Supreme Chancellor did not finish the thought. He did not need to. How much time remains until their demonstration? Vorik asked. Bam? Vexnara checked her chronometer. 47 minutes, Supreme Chancellor. Very well. I am issuing a galaxy-wide sensor alert. All monitoring stations are to report any irregularities, no matter how minor. If the humans are somehow responsible for these readings. Again, the sentence hung unfinished. Vexnara terminated the communication and pulled up a galactic map displaying all known sensor installations. Hundreds of points of light scattered across dozens of star systems, each representing the technological pinnacle of their respective civilizations. And every single one was reporting the same impossible pattern of coordinated anomalies. But this is not possible, she whispered to herself. No single species has the capability to affect sensor readings across such distances simultaneously. The coordination alone would require communication faster than light speed, and even then. Her thought process was interrupted by an alert from the primary sensor array. New readings were coming in, stronger readings. Readings that could no longer be dismissed, as minor variances or measurement errors. Something was happening to the fundamental forces that held the galaxy together, something that defied every law of physics Vex Nara understood, something that was growing stronger by the minute. She checked her chronometer again. 36 minutes until whatever the humans had planned reached its culmination. For the first time since the human delegation's arrival, Vex Nara began to suspect that maybe, just maybe, they had underestimated Earth's capabilities. The thought terrified her more than she was willing to admit. It began with the Helix Nebula. Vex Nara watched in stunned silence as her primary sensor display registered the impossible, a class of stellar nursery, one of the most energetically active regions in the galaxy. It simply stopped. The massive fusion reactions that had burned for millions of years ceased in perfect synchronization across a volume of space spanning 12 light-years. Senior arbitrator Crix Tao's voice carried a tremor she had never heard before. "I am receiving emergency transmissions from the Feronian Mining Consortium. Their entire stellar harvesting operation in the Helix system has gone offline." Before Vex Nara could respond, alarms began cascading through the station's command center. Not the polite chimes reserved for routine alerts, but the bone-deep wails that indicated existential threats to galactic stability. "All stations report," she commanded, her mandibles clicking with barely controlled panic. "What are we seeing?" The responses flooded in faster than her translation matrix could process. Across known space, stellar phenomena were shutting down with mechanical precision. The great fusion fountains of Rigel, the neutron star lighthouse beacons of the Cygnus arm, the gravitational lensing effects of the Sagittarius black hole cluster. One by one, the fundamental power sources that sustained galactic civilization were going dark. "This is impossible," breathed Commander Velkorth from the Sensor Operations Center. "You cannot simply turn off stellar fusion. The forces involved, the energy requirements to disrupt stellar cores, no single species possesses such capabilities." Vex Nara's secondary displays lit up with incoming priority transmissions from across the galaxy. The Andromedan representative's crystalline form flickered with emergency light patterns. "The defense grid is experiencing total system failure. Our primary power collectors are reporting zero energy input from all 7 stellar sources." Counselor Threx's biopod bobbed frantically in his emergency communication alcove. "The Great Spiral. The Great Spiral is going out. 12 billion years of continuous stellar formation, and it is simply stopping." The magnitude of what she was witnessing began to penetrate Vex Nara's consciousness. These were not random failures. These were not natural phenomena. The shutdowns were happening in perfect sequence, spreading outward from Earth's position in a coordinated wave of impossible precision. "Crix Tau," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Calculate the propagation pattern. Show me the timing sequence." The holographic display that materialized above her workstation made her blood turn to ice water. The stellar shutdowns were not random. They followed a precise mathematical progression, radiating outward from Sol in expanding spheres that moved at exactly the speed of light. Someone was sending a message written in the death of stars. "By the 7 suns," she whispered. "They are doing this deliberately. All of it. Every stellar shutdown is coordinated to the nanosecond." Her communicator exploded with incoming emergency transmissions. The Korathian battle fleet reported complete propulsion failure as their solar collection arrays went offline. The Xylothian Empire's capital world was experiencing rolling blackouts as their primary star flickered like a dying candle. Entire sectors of galactic civilization were losing power simultaneously. Supreme Chancellor Vorik's ancient voice cut through the chaos with the authority of eons. "The emergency session of the Galactic Confluence will convene immediately. All available representatives are to report to Station Prime within the hour." "Supreme Chancellor," Vex Nara managed to say. "How do we convene anything when half our member species are losing primary power? The transportation networks alone. Find a way, Senior Arbitrator. We are facing the greatest crisis in recorded galactic history." The next 30 minutes brought reports that defied everything Vexnara thought she understood about the universe. The humans were not simply shutting down stellar fusion, they were manipulating the fundamental forces that governed matter and energy on a galactic scale. The Proxima Centauri system, complete gravitational anomaly, causing all orbital mechanics to halt. The Wolf 359 cluster, quantum field fluctuations preventing faster-than-light communication or travel. The Alpha Centauri binary, both stars experiencing controlled magnetic field inversions that disrupted all electronic systems within 50 light-years. How? Vexnara demanded of no one in particular. How is any of this possible? The energy requirements alone would exceed the total output of entire civilizations. Commander Velkorth's sensor readings provided no answers, only more impossible data. Senior arbitrator, I am detecting what appears to be coordinated manipulation of stellar cores across 17 different sectors. The precision suggests technology so advanced that our sensors cannot even detect the mechanisms being used. The emergency session of the Galactic Confluence convened in chaos. Representatives who could still travel arrived in vessels powered by emergency backup systems. Those who could not attend participated through quantum entanglement communicators, their signals weak and intermittent. Counselor Zethra's 6 arms gestured helplessly as she reported from the Andromedian sector. 3 of our primary industrial worlds have gone completely dark. Fusion reactors that have operated continuously for millennia simply stopped. Our engineers cannot even approach the reactor cores. Something is preventing all nuclear reactions within affected areas. The Feronian delegate's crystalline form pulsed with dim, emergency lighting. Our entire civilization depends on stellar energy harvesting. If this continues, we face total societal collapse within standard days. Vexnara found herself staring at the tactical display showing affected systems. The pattern was becoming clear now, and the realization was more terrifying than anything she had ever conceived. The stellar shutdowns were not random demonstrations of power. They were strategic strikes against the fundamental infrastructure of galactic civilization. Every affected system was a critical node in the network of trade routes, communication relays, or defense installations that held the galaxy together. The humans were not simply showing off their capabilities. They were systematically dismantling the galactic order with surgical precision. They planned this, she said aloud, her voice barely audible above the chaos around her. All of it. They knew we would reject their proposal. They knew exactly how we would react. This entire demonstration, it was never about convincing us to grant them authority. Supreme Chancellor Vorik's holographic form flickered as his communication systems struggled with power fluctuations. What are you saying, Senior Arbitrator? Vexnara turned to face the assembled representatives, her mandibles clicking with a rhythm that betrayed her terror. I am saying that the humans did not come here to request permission for anything. They came here to inform us of what they had already accomplished. The chamber fell silent except for the distant alarms and the hum of failing systems. They already have stellar defense coordination rights, she continued. They have had them all along. We just never realized it. As if summoned by her words, every sensor array in the chamber activated simultaneously. New contacts were appearing on long-range scanners. Hundreds of them, thousands of them, ships that had been invisible until this moment were suddenly broadcasting their locations across the galaxy. Human ships. Everywhere. Everywhere. Dear gods, whispered the Andromedan representative. How long have they been out there? Vexnara checked the sensor timestamps, her hands trembling as she processed the implications. The ships were not approaching from Earth's direction. They were already in position around every major star system, every strategic location, every critical installation that had just lost power. They had been there all along, waiting. The humans had not demonstrated their ability to coordinate galactic defense. They had demonstrated that they already were. The sensor displays transformed into a nightmare of tactical impossibility. Where empty space had existed moments before, Human vessels now appeared in perfect formation around every strategic point in known galactic space. Not approaching, not moving into position, already there. Vexnara's compound eyes struggled to process the scope of what she was seeing. Her workstation's holographic projector flickered as it attempted to render the sheer number of contacts, suddenly broadcasting their positions. "How many?" she whispered. Commander Velkorth's voice cracked as he read the sensor data. "The initial count shows, Senior Arbitrator, this cannot be accurate. I am reading over 50,000 distinct vessel signatures across 47 different star systems simultaneously." 50,000? Counselor Threx's biopod had gone completely still, his usual animated demeanor replaced by shocked paralysis. "That is larger than the combined fleets of the entire galactic confluence." The Korathian representative's massive exoskeleton trembled as his species' most advanced military sensors confirmed what their eyes refused to believe. "My battle fleet commanders are reporting human vessels in perfect tactical positions around every major military installation in our empire. They are everywhere." Vexnara pulled up detailed scans of the nearest human ship, a sleek vessel positioned exactly 3 light minutes from Station Prime. The readings made her mandibles lock in disbelief. "This is not possible," she said, her voice barely audible. "The power signatures, the hull composition, these ships are showing technological capabilities that exceed our most advanced theoretical models." "How advanced?" demanded Supreme Chancellor Vorik, his ancient voice carrying undertones of fear that Vexnara had never heard before. "Their smallest frigates are generating more energy than our largest dreadnoughts," Commander Velkorth reported. "The sensor masking technology alone, to hide this many vessels for this long, it suggests capabilities that are centuries beyond our current understanding." Ambassador Krill's serpentine form coiled tightly around her communication platform. "My government is reporting human ships positioned around every planet in our home system. Not in orbit, not approaching. Already there. As if they have been watching us for how long?" The question hung in the chamber like a physical weight. How long had the humans been out there? How long had they been watching, listening, learning? How long had the galaxy's most powerful civilizations been living under the silent observation of beings they had dismissed as primitive? "I need tactical analysis," Vexnara commanded. "Full spectrum review of every human vessel signature. I want to understand what we are dealing with." The data that filtered back from military installations across the galaxy painted a picture of technological supremacy that defied everything the galactic confluence thought they knew about the universe. Human ships that moved without detectable propulsion systems. Vessels that seemed to manipulate space-time itself to achieve faster-than-light travel without generating the energy signatures that such movement should require. Weapons systems that the galaxy's most advanced sensors could not even classify. Senior Arbitrator Krix Tal's voice carried the hollow tone of someone whose worldview had just collapsed. "I am receiving reports that human vessels are not just positioned around our strategic locations. They are inside our defensive perimeters. Ships that our security grids never detected, never tracked, never even suspected existed." The Andromedan representative's crystalline form had lost all color, pulsing with pale, frightened light. "Our defense grid, the most sophisticated detection network in galactic history, it has been completely compromised. Human ships are operating freely within our most secure sectors." Vexnara felt something cold spreading through her thorax as the full implications became clear. They have not just been watching us. They have been studying us, learning our technologies, our tactics, our weaknesses. But how long? Counselor Zethra asked, her 6 arms trembling. "How long have they been infiltrating our space? Years? Decades?" Commander Velkorth consulted his tactical displays, cross-referencing historical sensor data with current human positions. His findings were worse than anyone had imagined. Based on optimal positioning analysis, to achieve this level of strategic placement would require minimum 50 years of gradual infiltration. 50 years. Half a century of human ships moving silently through galactic space. positioning themselves with mathematical precision around every critical installation, every major trade route, every defensive stronghold that mattered. "We have been living in an illusion," Vexnara said quietly. "All our military might, all our technological superiority, all our galactic dominance, it has been meaningless. The humans have been allowing us to believe we were in control." The Feronian delegate's voice chimed with harmonics of pure terror. "If they have had this capability for 50 years, why reveal it now? Why show themselves? They could have remained hidden indefinitely." Supreme Chancellor Vorik's ancient wisdom provided the answer that no one wanted to hear. Because they no longer need to hide. Because they have achieved complete strategic dominance. Because the time for subtlety has ended. "But what do they want?" demanded Threx. "If they possess such overwhelming superiority, why go through the charade of requesting coordination rights? Why not simply take control?" Vexnara studied the tactical displays showing human ship positions. The formations were not random. They were not aggressive. They were protective. Defensive patterns designed to safeguard critical infrastructure while maintaining complete tactical superiority. "Because," she said slowly, as understanding dawned, "they do not want to conquer us. They want to protect us from something we do not even know is coming." The chamber fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. The request for stellar defense coordination rights was not about gaining authority over us, she continued. It was about formalizing the protection they have already been providing. They wanted our permission to openly do what they have been doing in secret for decades. "Protection from what?" whispered the Andromedan representative. Before anyone could answer, every sensor array in the chamber activated simultaneously. New contacts were appearing at the very edge of galactic detection ranges. Massive signatures moving in from the dark spaces between galaxies. Not human signatures. Something else. Something that made the human fleet look small by comparison. "Dear gods," breathed Commander Velquarth. "What is that?" Vexnara checked the trajectory calculations, her mandibles clicking with growing horror as she realized what they were seeing. "That," she said quietly, "is why the humans needed stellar defense coordination rights." The approaching signatures were not ships. They were something else, something that moved through space like a living disease, consuming everything in its path. And it was heading directly for the heart of galactic civilization. The humans had not been preparing to conquer the galaxy. They had been preparing to save it. When the chamber doors opened for the human delegation's return, the silence was absolute. Not the expectant quiet of beings preparing to mock primitives, but the reverent hush of civilizations acknowledging the presence of their superiors. Kai Morrison entered exactly as he had 6 hours earlier, calm, measured steps, hands clasped behind his back, expression unchanged. But everything else had transformed beyond recognition. Where before the gallery had buzzed with dismissive chatter, now every representative sat in perfect stillness. Where before casual disregard had filled the air, now an atmosphere of desperate attention pressed against every surface. Vexnara found herself rising from her observation alcove before conscious thought directed her movement. Around the chamber, the galaxy's most powerful beings followed her example. Supreme Chancellor Vorik himself materialized his full holographic presence rather than the casual projection he had used earlier. They were all standing in honor of a species they had mocked as primitives mere hours ago. Kai Morrison paused at the speaker's platform, his gaze sweeping the chamber with what might have been mild amusement. When his eyes met Vexnara's, she felt her mandibles click involuntarily. There was no smugness in his expression, no satisfaction at their obvious terror. Only the patient regard of someone who had expected exactly this reaction. "Honored members of the Galactic Confluence," he began, using the same words as before. But now those words carried weight that made the chamber's bio-neural networks hum with tension. "I trust you have had sufficient time to review the materials we provided." Materials. He called the systematic demonstration of galactic-scale technological supremacy materials. Supreme Chancellor Vorik's ancient voice resonated with newfound respect. Ambassador Morrison, the Galactic Confluence formally acknowledges that our previous assessment of Earth's capabilities was incomplete. Incomplete is generous, Kai replied mildly, but understandable. We prefer to avoid unnecessary displays of capability when diplomatic solutions remain viable. Vexnara felt something fundamental shift inside her consciousness. The human was not gloating. He was not demanding apologies or acknowledgement of their earlier mockery. He was simply proceeding with business. Counselor Threx's biopod trembled as he spoke. Ambassador, our sensor networks are detecting extensive human presence throughout galactic space. May we inquire about the duration of this deployment? Our ships have been in position for approximately 63 standard years, Kai answered matter-of-factly, since shortly after our first detection of the approaching threat. 63 years. Before most current council members had even taken office, before the current galactic trade agreements had been negotiated, before the last 3 interspecies conflicts had been resolved. The humans had been silently protecting galactic civilization for longer than some species had been members of the confluence. The approaching threat, Ambassador Krill managed to say, her serpentine form coiled tightly with barely controlled fear. Our sensors are detecting massive signatures moving in from extragalactic space. What are we facing? Kai Morrison's expression grew serious for the first time since his arrival. The Devourers, as we call them, are a post-biological collective that consumes organized matter to fuel their expansion. They have eliminated approximately 4 galaxies in this local cluster over the past million years. 4 galaxies. Vexnara's mind struggled to process the scale of destruction being described. Trillions upon trillions of beings, entire civilizations, whole stellar nurseries, gone. They will reach the outer rim of our galaxy in approximately 14 standard months, Kai continued. Initial contact with our defense perimeters will occur in 18 months. A full-scale invasion will begin within 2 years. The chamber erupted into chaos as dozens of species began broadcasting emergency communications to their home governments. The magnitude of the threat was beyond anything in recorded galactic history. However, Kai said, his voice somehow carrying above the pandemonium without increasing in volume, Earth's defensive preparations are well advanced. With proper coordination and cooperation from Confluence members, we project a 97% probability of successful repulsion. The chaos stopped as if a switch had been thrown. 97%? Vexnara heard herself ask. Against a force that has destroyed entire galaxies. The Devourers rely on consuming the organizational energy of their targets, Kai explained. They are particularly effective against civilizations that depend on stellar fusion and conventional physics. Their previous victories were achieved through technological superiority and strategic surprise. He paused, allowing the implications to settle. They have neither advantage against Earth, said. Vexnara's worldview completed its transformation in that moment. The beings she had mocked as primitive were not just more advanced than she had imagined. They were so far beyond galactic civilization that they viewed galaxy-destroying forces as manageable threats. The coordination rights we requested, Kai continued, are necessary to integrate Confluence defense assets with our existing strategic framework. Your ships, your technologies, your personnel, all have valuable roles to play in the defense plan. Our technologies? The Korathian representative asked weakly. But surely our capabilities are primitive compared to yours. Kai Morrison smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was a warm, genuine expression that somehow made everything more terrifying. Every civilization contributes unique perspectives and capabilities, he said. The Andromedan defense grid provides excellent early warning capabilities. Korathian battle tactics offer innovative solutions for close-range engagement. Xylothian industrial capacity enables rapid resource mobilization. He was being diplomatic. Vexnara realized that what he was really saying was that they would be useful as support staff for a defense plan designed and implemented by beings so advanced that their true capabilities remained incomprehensible. What about our previous rejection of your proposal? She found herself asking. Does that complicate the situation? Kai's expression returned to its previous patient calm. The proposal was a formality, senior arbitrator. Earth has been coordinating galactic defense for over 6 decades. We simply hope to make the arrangement official. Of course. The request had never been about gaining permission. It had been about revealing themselves, about preparing the galaxy for the truth they would need to accept. Supreme Chancellor Vorik spoke with the weight of eons behind his words. The Galactic Confluence formally grants Earth full stellar defense coordination rights and with unlimited authority over all military and strategic resources necessary for galactic protection. Thank you, Kai said simply. The transition to overt operations will begin immediately. Its defense coordination briefings for all Confluence members will commence within the hour. He turned to leave, then paused exactly as he had before. Oh, and counselors? Welcome to the real galactic community. As the chamber doors sealed behind him, Vexnara remained standing, staring at the space where the human had been. Her entire understanding of the universe had been rewritten in less than 7 hours. The primitives had become the protectors. The primitives had always been the protectors, and she had never even known. 3 days later, Vexnara sat in her private office reviewing the terms of Earth's actual demands, and the irony was so complete that she found herself laughing until her mandibles ached. The document before her was not a list of conquests or territorial claims or tribute requirements. It was a mutual defense treaty. Standard resource sharing agreements, she read aloud to her empty office. Voluntary technology exchange programs, cultural liaison positions, emergency coordination protocols. Earth wanted exactly what any reasonable spacefaring civilization might request when joining a galactic community. The only difference was that they had the power to demand anything they wanted, and they chose to ask for cooperation. Crixtal entered with another stack of reports, his usually efficient demeanor replaced by the shell-shocked expression that had become common among station personnel. What senior arbitrator, the Human Defense Coordination briefings have concluded. Military commanders from 17 different species are, well, they are requesting immediate reassignment to support roles. Let me guess, Vexnara said. They realize that their military expertise is approximately equivalent to children playing with toy soldiers. The Korathian battle fleet commander specifically used the phrase primitive war games when describing his previous understanding of interstellar combat tactics. Vexnara had attended one of the briefings herself. The experience had been humbling in ways she was still processing. The humans had not lectured or condescended. They had simply shared their strategic analysis of the approaching threat, and the casual revelation of their capabilities had left galactic military leaders questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare. They showed us simulations of devourer combat tactics, she continued, reading from her notes. Entire star systems converted to raw materials in hours. Fleets that move through dimensions we cannot detect. Weapons that restructure matter at the quantum level. And then the humans had shown their counter-strategies. Technologies that made the galaxy's most advanced weapons look like pointed sticks. Defensive capabilities that could protect entire sectors simultaneously. A military coordination that operated on scales of time and space that most species could barely comprehend. The most remarkable part, Vexnara mused, is that they have been developing these capabilities specifically to protect us, not to conquer us, not to exploit us, to protect us from a threat we never even knew existed. She pulled up the timeline of human preparation that Kai Morrison had shared during the coordination briefings. 63 years of careful planning, decades of silent observation and protection, entire generations of humans dedicating their lives to defending civilizations that dismissed them as primitive. Crixtal, how long did our xenobiology experts estimate it would take for humans to develop interstellar travel capabilities? The consensus estimate was approximately 500 years, senior arbitrator, assuming optimal technological development and no major setbacks. Vexnara clicked her mandibles in what passed for bitter amusement among her species. They were off by only 450 years, not counting the fact that humans achieved interstellar travel 70 years ago and simply chose not to tell anyone. The reports on her desk painted a picture of human preparation that was staggering in its scope and foresight. Research facilities hidden in asteroid belts, manufacturing centers disguised as mining operations, military academies operating under the cover of scientific research stations, an entire shadow civilization dedicated to protecting a galaxy that had never asked for protection and would have refused it if offered. The fascinating thing, she said to Krixtal, is that they genuinely tried to do this diplomatically first. They came here hoping we would accept their proposal and work with them openly. They wanted to avoid the fear and chaos that their revelation has caused. And when we rejected them, they proceeded with their defensive preparations anyway. Because protecting us was more important than our comfort with the arrangement. Vexnara turned to the final section of the human proposal, the part that had made her laugh so hard she had damaged her breathing apparatus. Earth's formal request for payment in exchange for galactic defense services. The amount requested, 0. The resources demanded, none. The territories claimed, Earth's home system only. The only thing they wanted in return for saving galactic civilization was the right to continue doing what they had been doing in secret for over 6 decades. You know what the most humbling part is? She asked Krixtal. Reading their contingency plans. They have detailed strategies for defending the galaxy even if every Confluence member actively opposed them. They were prepared to save us from the Devourers regardless of whether we wanted to be saved. She stood and moved to her observation window, looking out at the human vessels now openly patrolling around Station Prime. It's sleek, powerful ships that moved with a grace that made the galaxy's finest warships look clumsy by comparison. We spent centuries building a galactic civilization based on the assumption that we were the apex of development, she said quietly. We created the Confluence to manage the affairs of advanced species. We established protocols for dealing with primitive worlds that might someday join our ranks. The irony was so complete it was almost artistic. And all along, the most advanced species in known space was watching us play at being grown-ups, protecting us from threats we could not even detect, and patiently waiting for us to mature enough to accept the truth. What truth, Senior Arbitrator? Vexnara pressed her hand against the transparisteel window, watching a human patrol ship glide silently past. That we were never the protectors. We were always the protected. Her reflection stared back at her from the window's surface, a being who had spent 3 centuries believing she was part of the galaxy's ruling class, was only to learn that she had been living under the benevolent guardianship of species she had dismissed as insignificant. The humans did not need our permission to coordinate galactic defense, she said softly. They were already doing it. What they needed was for us to stop being frightened children long enough to help them save our own civilization. Krixtal was quiet for a long moment. Do you think we would have handled the revelation better if they had approached it differently? Vexnara considered the question carefully. No, we needed to be humbled. We needed to understand exactly how wrong we were about everything. Otherwise, we would have spent the next 2 years arguing about jurisdiction and protocol while the Devourers consumed our worlds. She turned away from the window and back to her desk, where reports continued to accumulate. Updates on human defensive preparations, coordination schedules for Confluence support assets, technical briefings on technologies that most species would not understand for centuries. The beautiful thing about it all, she said, settling back into her work chair, is that the humans still need us, not as protectors or leaders or strategic planners, but as ourselves, as the civilizations they have been protecting all along. How so? Because someone has to be worth saving. Someone has to represent the cultures and dreams and possibilities that make galactic civilization valuable in the first place. The humans can protect us from the Devourers, but they cannot be us. Vexnara picked up the first report in her stack, a detailed analysis of human defensive capabilities that would reshape galactic military doctrine for millennia to come. We thought we were the ones offering protection to primitive species, she said with a final click of amusement. It turns out we were the primitive species all along. And the humans? The humans, she said, beginning to read, were exactly what they claimed to be from the beginning. Our protectors. We just were not wise enough to recognize them when they asked for permission to save our lives. And outside her window, the human ships continued their silent patrol, watching over a galaxy that was finally beginning to understand just who had been watching over them all along.